Greetings, brothers and sisters. I am Father Aaron Leach, and today's video is about magical mishaps. Magical mishaps. But first, before we get started, I would like to thank these folks right here. These are our patrons who actually requested today's video, and I just love these people. These people are my heroes. If you would also like to become a member of our Patreon family, as always, I'm going to have a link in the description of the video, and you can sign up for different levels of sponsorship, getting access to discounts at our store, access to our classes, and neat stuff like that. So head on over there after the video is over and sign up. So today, as I said, we're going to be talking about magical mishaps. Now, there are a couple of things this can mean. On the one hand, it can mean when something goes wrong with the results of your ritual. Say you don't get any results, or even worse, you get results that you did not intend if things go awry. Now, there's not a lot you can do to fix that. I mean, once the spell is done, the spell is cast. I mean, that's just all there is to it. At that point, you're now into reactive magic to try to maybe mitigate, I should say, some of the effects that may have been caused. So that's really a different discussion, because we're talking about the mishap itself, what you did wrong, what you forgot or left out. What's important to remember is that magic has not always had the definition that Aleister Crowley gave it, that magic is the art of changing, or the art of causing change in conformity with your will. In the older texts, like the Key of Solomon and the grimoires that I work from, magic was defined as working with spirits. And working with spirits involves a lot of protocol. There are things you have to know. You have to know their sacred numbers, their sacred colors, instruments and sounds and psalms and songs, and what plants and foods and incense and oils. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into this. And this is why we spend so much of our time as magicians learning correspondences for the planets and the angels and the spirits we work with. But it's more than that too. You have to know who the spirit is. You have to know what will offend the spirit, what will attract the spirit, and in order to not only establish contact with them, but to gain their respect and make them actually want to help you. And if you don't follow the protocols that they expect, then they will tend to ignore you. And that's where you will either get no result from your magic, or because you don't have the backing of the entity you were trying to work with, you can get unexpected results, be it just through, maybe the involvement of other spirits that you wouldn't want involved, basically who showed up in the vacuum of the spirit you were trying to contact, or even if you want to look at it more philosophically, you didn't make contact with the entity you wanted to. So the spell you cast was not properly directed by that entity. So it kind of just went in the path of least resistance. And we hear that a lot. You hear the old idea of, I do a spell to get money, and my uncle dies in a car crash, and now I inherit his money. And, well, I didn't intend to kill my uncle to get the money. So you have to make sure that your magic is under the guidance of the entity that you're trying to call for that spell, in order to make sure it doesn't just take the path of least resistance and something negative may take place. Now, I know that those of you who requested this video weren't really talking about that. I just thought that it was important to mention that, because that's the first place that you can go very wrong. And as we're learning to do magic, you're probably going to do that at some point. You might work with an entity and have something, a symbol or a kind of metal or something on the altar that upsets that entity, and now you're not understanding why you're not able to interact with this entity in a positive way, and you didn't know that there was something present, or that you were doing or not doing, or there was something absent, whatever it may be, but it upset that entity and they don't want to work with you. You find that a lot in like the African traditional religions, where if you upset the Orisha, or if you upset the Loa, they can respond negatively and angrily. And it's no less true in our Western systems. It's no less true of the archangels. It's entirely true of the spirits, like in the Goetia and all of those guys. So you have to know the protocols. Magic is a collection of protocols. And if you meet those protocols, then the spirits will respond. It's not psychological. It doesn't matter what your mindset is. And again, that's not a blanket term. There are times when your mindset is vital. But from the standpoint we're talking about here, where it comes to the protocols, your mindset isn't what makes those work or fail to work. So learn the protocols. You have to learn the lore of the entity. You have to know what it likes and dislikes. And of course, like I said, when you're new, you're going to make those mistakes and probably get burned. Or if you do make good contact, then the spirit or angel itself can say, hey, get that off my altar. Or, hey, why isn't this thing on my altar? Or, hey, the next time you call me, I'd like to have this symbol here. Or I'd like you to do it at this particular time of day or month or year or whatever. So interaction with the spirits and getting them to teach you is really the core of all of it, guys. I mean, that's the point. Making contact with the spirits and having them teach you. So learn those protocols, learn the lore, learn what the grimoires say about the magic, and when you get all that stuff right, then things will actually start to happen. And then things like your mindset and your psychology and stuff will also come into play. But you got to get the basics right first. So there's the first mishap. And I'm really digressing here and wasting your time going off in that direction, because what you guys are really asking, I know, was what happens when things go wrong during the ritual? So here we're really talking more about like things falling over in the ritual, spilling liquids, things catching on fire, when things go awry in the ritual itself. And believe it or not, that's really more of a complex subject than you might think it is. So I'm going to start at the most basic concept, and we're going to work up to some things that might actually surprise you about those kinds of mishaps in rituals and on active altars as well. So the first thing I want to say is things will sometimes go wrong, okay? You will bump into things. You'll knock things over. You'll trip, you'll make mistakes. And I always want to stress that you don't want to let those things stop your ritual. And I see this happen a lot where, let's say a chalice is spilled and the ritual grinds to an absolute halt and the circle gets broken and, everyone's got to attend to this one thing. And then all of the energy you've been building up and the atmosphere you've been building up just is gone. It's almost like you're starting over to try to get back to the ritual. And most of the time that is not necessary. If the accident that just took place does not require you to stop, then don't stop. I'll give you a great example. This one is from my lodge experience. One day I was sitting as Hierophant, and we were performing a ritual. I want to say it was an equinox ritual in my Golden Dawn temple, but I might be wrong about that. It's a long time ago. But I was at the altar, and I had the Hierophant scepter, and I was making all sorts of figures, and vibrating divine names over the altar itself. And my robe caught the chalice. The sleeve of my robe caught the chalice, which was full of wine, and over it went, and it drenched just everything on the altar. The way I reacted was to not react. I just kept going, like nothing had happened. I think I had kind of a sour look on my face for about half a second. And then I just went right back into it because I didn't want to break that stride. I didn't want to break what I was building up. And fortunately, when you're in a lodge or a circle or coven situation, you have all these other people that are officers and participants in your ritual. And I believe it was the Stellistes and the Dudu hosts in my temple that leapt up. And as I continued the ritual, they toweled up what had spilt, set the chalice upright, and refilled it with wine. And by the time I got back to the throne in the east and sat down, we were ready to move forward, and everything had been reset like nothing even happened. Now, of course, if you're working alone at home, that's going to be a little different. So you're going to have to kind of use your judgment. I mean, is it really, whatever you knocked over or whatever mishap took place, whatever spilled or even broke, these things happen, then you have to decide, I mean, is this something I need right now? Can I not do the next part of the ritual because this happened? And if the answer is no, then just keep going, finish what you're doing and then come back to that and set it right. So yeah, keep that stride, keep going. And if it's not necessary to stop, don't. If it is necessary, then that's understandable, and you get back to it as best as you can. But try to keep that stride. Now, also keep in mind that when things go wrong like this, especially when something spills or falls over, this can also be spirit involvement. They can be signs to indicate that the spirits are there, that they're active in the ritual with you. In some cases, it may actually mean that the spirits are rejecting something. Maybe they knocked over an object because they didn't like it, or they spilled a liquid because that's not the one they wanted. Maybe something caught on fire and burned because they don't want that on the altar. So when these things happen, it's almost like a form of divination. Anytime you have an active ritual going, or if you're working on an active altar, no matter how mundane the incident is, and it doesn't mean that there's no scientific explanation for why your novena candle just shattered, because the flame hit the side of the glass, heated it up, and it shattered. But the explanation for how it happened is not important. What's important is that it happened. It has a symbolic meaning. It is the spirits communicating with you in some way. Great example is on my own guardian angel's altar. I've had her novena candle shatter like that when it heats up. It's very rare, but it's always been at a time when something else was happening, when she was either cleansing something out of me, my guardian angel was either cleansing something out of me or grounding something that might have been directed at me negatively. So there's always a reason for it. And that's her way of not only grounding that energy out and letting it hurt the candle rather than hurting me, but it's also her way of letting me know that something happened. Hey, you need to pay attention here. And I've been very thankful when I've had those warnings, and she really has saved me from some pretty harsh things by doing that, by grounding them out. Now, there's also a flip side to this coin. They may knock something over, not because they're rejecting it, but because they want it. A great example there. We have our altar to the Archangel Anael. She's the Archangel of Venus. And while we use oils on all of our altars, Archangel oils, the oil that we buy for her, it is very rare for us to actually get to use even half of one of those bottles of oil, because somehow she finds a way, whenever that oil is on her altar, it's going to spill. You can do everything in your power to keep that oil from spilling, but she'll find a way. And that oil spills all over her altar cloth. And then you spend days just smell. Every time you walk near that altar, walk in the room where that altar is, you're smelling that. And she loves that. She wants that oil. She's drinking it, and she wants that smell in the air. Where we typically only open that oil and anoint the statues, the archangel statues, when we are working with them. But she is Venus. She's Aphrodite. She's a high maintenance woman. So she wants that smell all the time. She wants to be pretty all the time. So that's just one good example of how things can spill onto an altar, not even because especially liquids, the oils and waters and wines and stuff. It's spilling may not mean they don't want it. It may mean that they do. So keep that in mind as well. Now, like I said, these are also signs. The spirits may just be letting you know that they're there. They may be taking some active part in the ritual. By making some mishap happen, it changes the way, like I said, keep that flow going. Well, they may do something where you can't keep the same flow going, and it causes you to change what you're doing because you have to stop and deal with that mishap. And keep in mind that they're actually teaching you that, something may fall over and break, like I said, because they don't want it there. And then for your future rituals not to bring that. Or something, for example, let's say you're working with salamanders and something catches fire. Now there's an example. It may not even mean anything toward the object itself. It can just be a sign that the salamanders are present. Or if you're working with the spirits of Mars, they'll sometimes set things on fire. So you can actually take them as a good omen. Let's say you spill a chalice of holy water and you're working with undines, or you're working with spirits of the moon. then that's a sign they're there. They're playing in that water. They want that water all over the place. So that says, hey, we're here. So, and again, I'm going to come back to saying that it's like divination. It's something you have to intuit in the moment. When this incident happens, how does it feel? Do you feel negativity about it? Or do you get the message that this was just, hey, we're here? Or do you get a message that they're saying, hey, don't do it this way. We want you to do it this way. So it's part of the communication. And that's not something you're going to just jump in and do at your first ritual. This is part of building the relationship with the spirits. Let me go back to that Anael altar thing. The first time we spilled oil, we were apologetic about it. We're sorry, Anael. We don't mean to spill your oil. And then it happened a second time, and then we were irritated. It's like, what in the world? I can't believe I did this twice. What's going on? Does she not want the oil? Then it happened a third time and a fourth time, and we finally got it. Oh, okay. This is something she's going to do every time we bring oil. So it's because she wants the oil. But we had to figure that out, and that was part of us building our relationship with Anael. So the last thing I want to cover is something I've already touched on, actually, in this discussion, where I mentioned the novena candles on my guardian angel's altar that will sometimes shatter if she's trying to ground something or clean something out of me. That's actually known in other magical traditions. It's not so much talked about in the Western traditions, but it is still true. If something actually breaks, especially if it's a magical object, if your sword breaks, your athame breaks, your chalice breaks, these are things that the spirits will do to actually break curses, to clear bad energy out of you. They are using those objects like lightning rods to ground out of you or out of the environment anything that's negative and hurtful. So maybe your favorite ritual dagger fell on the floor and broke into two pieces, and that's heartbreaking, but don't feel guilt about it, because what your spirits were doing was cleaning something negative out of you using that magical tool, because it's bound to you. It's something that you have, worked with for maybe years even. For example, in our last ritual to Samael, the Archangel of Mars, I had my Solomonic sword, which I've had for the better part of 20 years, maybe even longer. No, I think it's even longer than 20 years, to be honest. And I had that sword at his altar. And when I called the rest of the family in after the ritual to share in the feast offering, the sword was knocked over. And it fell, and it actually broke part of the hand guard, part of the hilt. And I was upset, but I set it back up. I set it back against the altar, and it fell over, and another piece of it broke off. And then when I went to get it again, it fell over a third time. I don't even remember how it fell over the third time. It was like it just did it on its own. So no one bumped it or anything. It just went over. And now there are literally 4 different pieces. The sword itself and 3 different pieces that broke off of it. And, once this continued to happen, it really sunk in to me that Samael was doing exactly what we had asked him to do, and was protecting us from negative energies, from negative spirits, from anything that was inside us. And so he cleared it out, and the sword was sacrificed, but it was sacrificed for a good reason. And now I just have to get a new sword. But so take a look at what happens in this ritual space, because even mishaps are part of the ritual. Mishaps are part of how the spirits communicate with you, help protect you, help guide and dictate how the ritual should go. They're never just random. So always keep the flow of the ritual going as best as you can, unless you have to stop in order to address it. If you're in a group situation, you want to be in a good group. You want to have the kind of group that others will just rush in and set everything back right while you continue doing the invocations. That's a wonderful experience, which you can't really do that at home. So keep that flow. Look at what happened. Look at what it happened to. What object was affected? Was it broken? Did it just fall over? Was it liquid that was now drenching the altar because the spirits wanted it? Or was it something they were trying to get rid of because they don't want it? And this is all things that you're just going to have to learn as you go along. It's always good to try to read the incident the same way you would read a tarot card or a rune or anything like that. So, yep, they are magical. They are magical mishaps. They are magical incidents, and they mean something. And that's really all I've got for you today. And hopefully I'll get another video out sooner than this one came out. I wanted to release this actual video at the end of December, but you know, Christmas, New Year's, the almost fall of our democracy, you know, it kind of got in the way. And I know not only was I in no shape to try to do a video, but I know you guys were not in much shape to watch one either. So thank you for your patience. I say that in every video, don't I? Thank you for your patience. And I will see you next time. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, but you have, right? You've already subscribed. And ring that spirit bell to summon us to your inbox whenever we publish new content. And if you join us over on Patreon, you'll get that new content before anybody else does. So head to that link in the description and come visit us. And with that, blessed be.